Welcome to Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. We will see you in about 45 seconds or so. Make sure that you are subscribing to our channels, our LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Turn on notifications, and we are very excited to be here with you. It's almost time, about 30 more seconds. Make sure to grab your notebook and pen so you can jot down notes along the way, because at the end of the show, you could have an opportunity to ask our guests questions so we can dive a little deeper into these topics. And here we go. Welcome to Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks again for joining Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. We're hanging out with Rodger Smelcer. Rodger, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic, except I have an emergency weather pattern that is passing through my area right now. It went from a 40% chance of rain to all of the alarms going off and an 80+ mile an hour windstorm and rainstorm coming through. So
Wow.
if you lose me, just keep on talking and I'll be back as soon as the power comes back on.
No problem.
Rodger, we had a fantastic conversation just a few weeks ago about the many different career paths within the HVACR industry. And you serve a very unique portion of the industry, and it happens to be one that I'm very comfortable, very familiar with, one that I spend a lot of time in. Now, when we start talking to our educators and we start talking to our students about career paths, once they get out of the program, a lot of them anticipate that they're going to end up in a residential or a light commercial HVAC situation, right?
Yep.
They don't always get introduced to all of the different options. So if you are unfamiliar with HVACcareermap.org, it's a collaboration of different community colleges within California and some energy co-ops. So it is a really cool resource to help show some of the different paths that we have within our industry. So let's say we come out of school and maybe we think, we were just going to end up as a residential technician, and we weren't introduced to all of the options. Well, when we use tools like this to kind of take a look at those different resources, we can see that there are a variety of different things that we can do. We can progress out of those entry-level jobs into like installers. We can move into warehousing jobs, but we can also get into the commercial sector. So let's just say we have an interest in moving over into the commercial environment. We want to take our HVAC and move it into, say, refrigeration and let's just say some kitchen style equipment opportunities. Well, a lot of people don't realize that we have apprenticeship programs that can lead us into these directions. And where you specialize is in the cooking equipment service technician realm.
Yep.
And that was me.
Yeah.
A lot of mom and pop grocery stores and restaurants and large grocery, chain grocery stores. I did a lot of different food service equipment. And it wasn't just refrigeration, because as a refrigeration guy, you're there working on something, but I've talked about this many times before. My first encounter with looking at other kitchen equipment was I had a pizza oven at one of our shops that went down. I was there looking at an ice machine, and he says, "Hey, Cliff, you think you could take a look at this pizza oven?" I'm like, "Pizza oven?" He said, "Yeah, it's a heating appliance, isn't it?" And I went, "Well, yeah, it is a heating appliance." So we have a lot of options in our industry. So I wanted to spend some time with you talking about the program that you guys have built and the way that we groom our youth, because the way that we recruit today may not look similar to the way we recruited 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think you're the master of recruitment and retention.
Well, I don't know if I'm the master, but we started about 7 years ago really trying to attract young people into our business. And we looked at, where were millennials and Gen Z looking for work, and would they be interested in this type of work?
Yeah.
And I think, we kind of struck gold a little bit with some prior auto mechanics and things that had the willingness to get a little dirty and and good mechanical aptitude, and we
Mhm.
thought we could train these people.
Yes.
That sometimes they got into it, and it was working outside in a hot environment. I lived in California and now live in Arizona, and I can't imagine working in the Bay, on a 110-degree day. And
Absolutely.
we're working in grocery stores and even sometimes in
Conditioned.
the cold rooms of
Right.
the meat department. And so I thought, this might be appealing to this group of people. And of course, we've been able to attract them from all over. But I think the big key to attracting them for us has just been having the kind of culture where they refer each other. So they're
Ah,
they're
now we're
they're
getting
trying
somewhere.
to yeah they're trying
Mhm.
to help their friends. We just had just in these last couple of weeks, one young guy in his mid 20s just recommend another guy in his mid 20s to come in and help us, and that's what we're trying to foster. That's what we'd like to see. I've mentioned many times in our industry to different groups that the average age of our technician is around 27,
Yes.
and that's very young in our industry. And it's just a testament to really having kind of a defined career path. As you mentioned before, sometimes people come in from residential appliance and they have into our business as well,
Yeah.
and that's a great transition. They can apprentice with our guys. They typically will pick up commercial food equipment very easy if they're coming from that environment, and it's been really strong way to bring them in.
Well, let's talk about that apprenticeship because this is very much about, what does successful recruitment look like? Whether
Mhm.
I'm a school and I'm recruiting technicians to come into the trade and I'm trying to inform them about all of the different amazing options once they leave the classroom, or I'm a contractor that is trying to build up my clientele. That's the biggest issue we see right now in the contractor side is retention and recruitment. But you've been very successful at that. And if we look at the generation, so I just did a class not too long ago on the basically 6 different generations of learners that we work with in
Mhm.
society. When we look at particularly our Gen Z and our millennials, they have some slightly different, I wouldn't say concerns, but desires for success in their career, especially with Gen Z. So let's talk about the culture that you're embedding and promoting that culture, because I think that is the driving force that is making this such a successful recruitment strategy.
Yeah, well, we like to call it our resume building culture of achievement, if that's a
Okay.
mouthful.
Yeah.
But really, it's just a resume building culture. We're looking to build value in each person, not only to our company, but to the world at large.
Okay.
And the way we do that is, you know, usually it starts with the conversation when we're first meeting the person and bringing them into the organization and defining what their career path would look like in our organization and what we would be adding to their resume at each stage through. So,
Okay.
for example, they might come in and we might start them on simple planned maintenance, and as they're picking that up, they're adding this planned maintenance capability to their resume.
Yeah,
And then they
absolutely.
move to installations and more advanced installations, and then on to commissioning and other things like that as they progress through their career. And that kind of a career arc can take, anywhere from weeks to months, depending on their ability and their aptitude. We're really looking for the same things most companies are looking for,
Sure.
good character, the capability to do the job. And if you don't know how to do something, that you're a quick learner. And then just being a team player, working well with others, having that good chemistry.
Sure, absolutely. So I know personally when I see resumes of my generation, so I'm a Gen Xer, I see resumes of fellow coworkers, and I have read resumes and looked at the person and went, I know you're more capable than this.
Hmm.
I think as a generation, we weren't groomed very well for building ourselves, especially like within our resume and how we reflect to others. But one of the characteristics, particularly of Gen Z, is the reflection of their development. And
Mhm.
that's what I see in your program. And I think many of us, if we're building our recruitment and our retention based on old strategies, they may not apply to our current generations. So, do you feel that as a driving force from these young folk coming in that they want to be recognized for their accomplishments?
It is, it's a driving force. I think there's some confusion. A lot of people would say that Gen Z or millennials need so much more feedback than maybe Gen X or baby boomers.
Right.
It's not necessarily that they need more. They are looking for progress, right?
Okay.
They're wanting to know, how is this helping me long term?
Yeah, exactly.
And, my generation, we just put our heads down and ground it out without
Right.
really thinking about what is this, you know, I like this generation.
Yeah,
The thing I love about them the most is they're very experience oriented, right? They
sure.
value experience more than things. That's why they're all living the van life
Right.
and moving around. And we've kind of embraced that. If you want to have a great experience, that's what we're trying to create with this resume building culture.
Okay.
And so that you can see, and when a resume building opportunity comes up, um, like a good example is we just moved to a new field service management software.
Okay.
Well, this software is used in 65% of the industry. It's going to be a really nice line item on every resume in our business.
To show
And
that they have adapted through
that's
softwares. Right, and that's
that's
not typically
right.
anything I would have had on my resume unless it was super significant. Like I went back to school to learn something. Maybe that's what I put on my resume.
Well, we've
Hmm,
used mixed reality technology, we use an AI product, all that can be added to their resume. And then we have quarterly goals that our service managers are working with their teams on. And each goal, in order for it to qualify, has to read like a line item on a resume. So a
really?
good example of that would be, I'm going to increase my mean time to fix, or the time it takes me to fix a fryer not heating, by 7%. That might be the goal this quarter.
How
Well,
would you
that
track
would be
that?
great on a resume
Yeah,
because I would be impressed. One,
yeah,
that you know what your mean time to fix is and that you're working to improve it.
exactly.
So, explaining to them why it would be important on their resume is important as well. Showing them what it means to me as a person that's hiring young people
Yeah,
and giving them the confidence that they actually are building their resume.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when you're talking about that, has it been an adaptation of your company and of your software to track these things and actually give some data to be analyzed? How does that function?
Yeah, a little bit. So we do it kind of a one-on-one, more personal way than that. So, of course, we rely on data for a lot of things in our business, but with people, we rely a lot more on the one-on-one conversations. So,
Yeah,
when we do those quarterly goals, we're meeting with them in person on those. And we're talking them through. And a lot of times we're saying, well, that doesn't really read like a line item on your resume.
okay.
What if we use the same goal, but we set it like this? And giving them those prompts to understand, what it's really going to look like on a resume.
Yeah.
I think that's good, and our data is showing that we're able to keep these people and get them to refer others. That's the most important piece to us, is how many referrals are we getting, and is that trend moving upward or is it flat?
Exactly. I mean, you take my generation, you build a resume preparing for the next stage in your life. So uh, you have an amazing retention rate. So what do you think is that motivator? So you're building them up personally, you're building their resume, but they're not taking the resume and moving on to the next contractor.
Well, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It kind
Right?
of does. That's why I
You're
wanted us to
building
have
your
this
resume.
conversation.
And when I have this conversation with other business owners, they're like, "Why would I want to build their resume? They'll go
Yeah,
work somewhere else."
exactly. It's a big fear for a contractor.
Well, the communication I'm having with our employees is, if your employer is not building your resume, you shouldn't be there, right? So
Wow, there's
we
a
are
bold one.
continuously building it, and we're showing you that we are. Are you confident that's going to happen wherever you go?
Yeah,
And in every case, the answer is no, I'm not confident. And so I think we get a lot more retention that way.
I can
Now
only imagine.
we've had people when they leave, we don't really have a lot of the issues I think many companies have with people going to work for other companies or competitors.
Mhm.
We're pretty friendly competitors in the market. We see it more as a race than a war.
Right.
And, sometimes we haven't had a position and technicians wanted to move up in that area and we just didn't have it available and they wanted to go do something else. Well, we're supportive. If you can't do it here, we're going to help you get to the next level there. And
Wow.
many of those people have come back over time,
Sure.
not because it wasn't okay at the other company, but because they knew now that they got a little experience in that, we'd take their resume a little bit further.
Exactly. Alan just made a good point. It's like a resume versus a portfolio. You're building their personal and professional resume and portfolio at the same time. So
That's
there's
right.
buy-in. So
Mhm.
a lot of people, if you're not aware, I'm very much about branding and keeping a consistent feel within a brand. And part of that is Gen Z in particular are very much brand oriented.
Mhm.
So if you're building a brand and you're building an individual as part of that brand, you weave a connection between the
Yes.
individual and the brand. And that's
Mhm.
why this philosophy is so much different than ones that we have seen in the past. Even for myself, I know that there were opportunities in my career development that were hindered because people didn't want me to leave. And
Mhm.
so I was at times plateaued and would have to find ways for continued personal development. So you're promoting the individual to self reflect on themselves, actually.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit. People don't think about their resume, right, until they need it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so if you're talking about it a lot and you're making them aware that this is the goal, this is what we're trying to do, because we know if we build their resumes, they'll be more powerful for us, right? And
Well, there's a
that's
perspective.
really occurred. So we have a lot of talented technicians. And you're right, they want to build their brand. Many of our technicians post what they do on social media. Of course, they're very
Yeah.
conscious about where they are and in what customer and not pushing brands out there and things that
Hmm.
our customers might object to. But the things that they can show are usually helps for other technicians because they've caught the bug. They're helping other technicians build their resumes as well.
And
So,
I want you to dive a little deeper on that because you and I had this discussion and it just sparked so much interest in me because we're talking about a generation that thrives on success and building up others. That is a beauty of this generation. Very different than my own generation, where you built yourself up and you got past others. That was a very common feel in my generation. Well, now we have
well,
a generation that's very different.
yeah. Well, if you look at how the generations compare, I look at millennials and Gen Z as already networked, right?
Yes.
They're already networked,
They
they're
were
already
born
connected
networking.
together.
Yeah.
Many times, a technician in my age group, I'm 57,
Mhm.
um, and I'm a Gen Xer, and but many people in my age group, when they tend to find a new or more efficient way to fix something, they'll kind of stick that in their pocket and hold it here as part of their value, right?
Yeah,
And that's not true with millennials and Gen Z. As soon as they learn something, they're posting on Snapchat and
that's right.
Facebook and, well, probably not Facebook,
Accomplishment.
but Instagram or
Yeah,
whatever they're
that's
using.
right. They're not sending to us old fogies.
And they're networked together, which means
Yeah,
they're learning faster.
from each
We
other.
we use this little free app called Marco Polo,
Mhm.
and our more senior technicians post, tips and tricks and things for other technicians on there, and they look at that, and it's kind of internal. It's not really shared out with the world. But we've
Okay.
kind of, in the past 2 years, we've really been transitioning from that internal to kind of getting it out there externally.
Oh, that's interesting. So a question just came in. Oh, wrong one, from Katie. Katie, this is a really it's an intriguing topic because this is what sparked my interest in wanting to have Rodger come on and talk about this. What kinds of resources and training do you give to managers for normalizing these conversations? Because it's really part of your internal culture.
Yeah, well, all of them were hired with the same thing in mind. So I'm very
Exactly.
fortunate in my business. Most of the managers that I have 13 direct reports,
Okay.
and of the 13, I probably knew 7 or 8 of them for 10 years before I hired them. So I
Wow.
hired some people that were close to me already, which helped
Exactly.
a lot, and already knew kind of the philosophy or the kind of culture we wanted to build. Um, I think in the very beginning, my business partner, Bob Heidkamp, who I started the
Mhm.
company with 28 years ago, we used to say, we're trying to build a culture of kindness, just being kind to each other and have a different environment for people to come to work to.
Right.
And that's kind of moved from just that to this resume building culture that we're doing today. And
Wow.
of course, we still want to be kind,
Yeah.
but we've kind of changed it a little bit to kind of match the what we're doing, and just kind of promote it through the group. With our older technicians in my age group and above, we've moved them into other roles. Like, we have a digital support team that supports the younger technicians out in the field, and senior ones alike, actually,
Huh.
in everything from technology to just finding a part number for them or doing other things for them. And what we're trying to do is really just capture that tribal knowledge and make sure that we have a place for technicians to go once they can't get up on top of the oven anymore, maybe, or some physical limitations come into play. We don't want to lose all that
Exactly.
value in their knowledge. And so we've created that, and that's really helped our younger technicians be more efficient and learn quicker.
Yeah. So you have your own internal social network. It's really what it comes down
Yeah,
to.
basically, yeah.
Wow. So shared through a mobile app, so the technicians are encouraged to share successes internally through your own social
Yeah,
mobile
and
network.
sometimes you have to tell them to, right? And
Right.
so I used to, when we first got on Marco Polo, and it's probably less used today than it was at the very beginning of
Right.
really establishing this culture. But when we first got on it, I used to tell all the technicians, I want you standing next to the person's fryer you just fixed, telling the good story about what you did right. And
Nice.
so we would get a lot of these. And what was beneficial about it is, because it was shared within the company, my purchasing agents were seeing the parts they order now
Right.
and how they went into the machines.
It's more than just a
And
part number.
yeah, our dispatchers were starting to understand why a clogged fryer takes a lot longer to fix, maybe
Yeah.
than another service call. And
Huh.
they started all getting to really know the business better.
Okay.
And now that's happening more through social media than it is through our one internal app. That's the
Right.
transmission that we've kind of made. But, that's another place where I think business owners are like, man, I don't want my technicians posting on social media. Everyone will be after them
Right.
and
And
trying to hire
critiquing
them.
and yeah.
Well, everyone's already trying to hire other technicians because we've
Exactly.
got this circular hiring program going on,
Yeah.
um, which is, it's benefiting some technicians, but most technicians will see value in the kind of culture you have, and in knowing that you're rooting for their success,
Exactly.
right? I'm rooting for every single person that comes to work for me to not only be able to build their resume, but to feel good about what they've learned and how they're growing.
Hmm. That really puts some beautiful perspective into a career path. Let's talk about your career path a little bit. Now, this is an example. We're not talking about something that just stays localized. You're part of a larger organization that
Yes.
is embracing, this style of development that is growing like crazy from coast to coast. And a lot of these companies as part of this group are, realizing the benefit of that. And it's hard to grow in this economy. And you are. And it all comes down to that career path. What kind of companies do you work for? We're not just talking about, a small realm. We're talking
Mhm.
about a lot of major companies that people recognize and don't think about, oh, what have they got at Sam's Club that needs worked on? What do they have at Walmart's, Amazon's? They start looking at these names and go, there's a lot of work out there in high end, very clean, very comfortable facilities.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about that career path and how would a student escalate through that and be promoted throughout?
Yeah, well, of course, you mentioned Tech 24 and showed a little map. Our leadership at Tech 24, we were acquired back in April of 21 and
Hmm.
found a company that definitely shared the same kind of values. They're really promoting a family kind of local feel company with the big company
Yeah,
resources behind it. And in fact,
exactly.
we like to say we're powered by Tech 24, even though our company name is United Service Technologies. But
Sure.
as far as career pathway goes, one of the great things about being part of a bigger company that actually is nationwide is it gives our technicians the ability to transfer to other areas once they come in.
Mobility.
Yeah, a little
Mm,
bit of mobility coming in. In fact, a little bit of advice to technicians coming into an area, especially in this day and age where people are working more remotely. Well, technicians have been
mhm.
working remotely forever,
That's
and
that's it.
we need them everywhere.
Yeah,
Sometimes you think, "Oh gosh, I don't know if I could even find a job in this area." There's a service job available in any area of the country.
absolutely.
And so I wouldn't, my advice to students would be don't discount a certain area because you don't see a giant metropolitan area. If there are grocery stores there and convenience stores and all of those things, you're going to be able to find work there with one of the
Mm.
companies that's in those areas.
Yeah, I was in a very small area, little farming town, but we had multiple school corporations. So I could look around. I had more work in my area than I realized because when you start making the connections of all the opportunities that you have, you go, there's a lot here. I mean, I worked at every school that was in my school district. I worked in 7 different school districts.
Yeah.
I worked at all of the grocery stores that I shopped at. I worked at all of the restaurants that I ate at.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunities, even in just your area. Even if you don't recognize, you don't see the big names, do some searching
Yeah.
because
So
they're probably in your backyard.
let me touch on that for a second. So, in we service mostly major grocery chains in our business, and several of the other
Yeah.
companies within the family of Tech 24 do different verticals like restaurants and convenience stores and all schools and all the different things. Um, but what we really have focused on are these bigger grocery stores. Well, in a single grocery store, in one chain, I know they have over 280 pieces of equipment that we work on in that one location.
Wow.
There is a lot to work on it. And let's call it what it is. Today, we're servicing primitive robots, fryers that have automatic lifts and combi ovens that clean themselves and things like
Yeah.
that. But increasingly, we're getting things like miso robots and things like robotic arms that you have to service. Things like that are coming into the market and coming at a rapid pace, along with modularization and more sophisticated IoT arrangements. And a lot of these machines come with edge hardware in it, and all you have to do is hook it up now.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I wanted to point out, especially like on this slide with the changes in technology.
Yeah.
A young student going into the field thinking, "Wow, yeah, I like working mechanically, but are you going to be able to stimulate my passion for technology along the way?" And you don't realize until you actually get out here into the industry that it is very automated. It is very sophisticated.
Yeah, well, the great thing about those groups is they're tech savvy already. They
Yeah.
know intuitively how to pick up a phone and use it. If you want to figure
Hmm.
out your phone, hand it to a 4-year-old, you know, and they can pick that up. What we do is we take them from tech savvy to tech fluent, right? So they don't only understand
Wow.
how to use this phone, but they
Yeah.
actually will understand what's happening inside of this phone that makes it work the way it does. And I think that's appealing, just to know that they have a little bit of knowledge that the average person on the street might not have at the end of their, well, even at the beginning of their career.
Absolutely. All right. So, a lot going on here, a lot of things to offer. It's important for our educators to look at all the different options. We were talking just yesterday, I was talking to our very own Tom Tebby from the HVAC Excellence Accreditation side of ESCO Group.
Mhm.
And we were speaking about the importance of development and the importance of embracing technology, but also the importance of being a mentor that are guiding our students in what their potential is when they leave the program. And so it's important for us to be able to look at all these avenues and go, you know what, you really did very well in this mechanical side of the program. Have you ever thought about not doing residential HVAC when you leave here and focus on an escalating career in commercial kitchen equipment? And I know a lot of programs may not focus on that because they don't know, where do you go? Where are your resources once you leave here?
Yeah, well, gosh, there's quite a few actually. You have the Commercial Food Equipment Service Association, which is a great place to get acquainted with our industry. Many of these companies are posting ads on Indeed and LinkedIn and everywhere, because we have a huge need for technicians in our industry at every experience level. We have kind of divided our technicians up into three groups: heroes, contenders, and challengers. And
Ooh.
we use some software that really helps us do that. And we can see people moving in the organization. But what we realized early on in the data is that you need all three.
Okay.
A company
Makes
full of
sense.
only heroes is
Yeah.
very hard to maintain, but when you have all three groups in, it's really can be successful. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we see. You need people at every level. In order to grow, you've got to have new
Yep.
guys coming in, and female technicians are another great place to start. We have some great female technicians in our organization. Have had
Mhm.
several over the years, and I still think that's a big area. I think there's companies like Valvoline that do just a tremendous job getting recruiting and hiring female to turn wrenches
To
and on
mechanics.
oil changes.
Right. Well,
And
we talked about this. You almost have to have a culture
yeah,
that is inviting the person in,
yeah.
because it may not be the job, the picture that we see from the outside. It may be the culture that is bringing that
Well, like
motivation.
you said, they don't know where to go. So you
Yeah.
have to be actively making them aware of where to go.
Recruiting and retaining.
Yes, you cannot
Absolutely.
sit on that. This is,
Mhm.
you've got to be active. And I'm happy to say that most companies in our industry are very active trying to hire technicians and bring them in. We've got great companies throughout the industry, and of course, even within the Tech 24 group, we have amazing companies that I've learned a lot from. And they're different cultures. Some of the
Sure.
cultures are a little bit different, and they come from a different area of the
Region and
country where traditions are
clientele.
different, the clientele's
Exactly.
different. And it's exciting to get in a room with those guys and share best practices and try to
Mhm.
implement them.
Exactly. Speaking of different regions, I invite anyone joining us, let us know in the chat where you're chiming in from. It's always interesting to see how far we reach out. We never know if we're just going through a few states or a few countries. And so we get a variety of participants. So definitely let us know. So, Roger, if I'm a young man, or I'm a young lady, and I'm looking at UST, United Service Technology, to go through the apprenticeship program,
Mhm.
what do those steps look like? Because it is a little bit different than I would have traditionally expected a apprenticeship. Because a lot of times an apprenticeship is, okay, you're going on this path and you're going to learn everything along this path so that you can do this one task. Tell me a little bit about your path.
We do it a little bit differently. We kind of have a farm league, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we bring them in all the way back at the warehouse sometimes. So if you have zero experience, but you have some mechanical aptitude and a willingness to get a little bit dirty,
Yeah.
we'll start them where they can touch and feel the parts and get used to the software systems and do those types of
Oh,
things. Then we'll quickly move
okay.
them to the field where they're doing what we call basic PMs, and they're fryers and slicers and ovens and rotisseries and
Yeah.
things like that. And then we'll move them to more advanced PMs on equipment that needs commissioning or programming, like you saw in the image
Right.
there a minute ago. Then they move to basic installations, right? And those are the smaller pieces of equipment that don't need commissioning. And then they move
Hmm.
to a more advanced installations and bakery oven tear outs and installations, bigger equipment, more commissioning involved. And then they move into um, apprenticeship writing with a technician. And this can sometimes, like I said, depending on their level of experience, they might be slotted into one of those spots ahead of, they might be out in the um, more advanced installation stage before they hit the apprenticeship part. But a lot of the youngest technicians that are in our group that are in their young 20s came up through that career arc,
That path. Yeah.
and then they as they learn, they're moving along as a technician, and we have about 5 levels of technician that we work with. But and each level of technician is, has a pay range associated with it. And so
Okay.
what we do is we really try to do a good assessment at each stage as they move along. And so
Sure.
they get moved along in pay as they move along in ability, as it should be.
Hmm. Tied to success of their resume portfolio?
Yeah. And so that's great
Oh,
when when you're adding things to your resume, you're adding value to us and value to the world. So
accomplishments. Yeah,
if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to retain them, right? They're
exactly.
expecting they're expecting that, along with building the resume, I'm going to advance in my career with the company, not only financially, but even positionally sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
We all are looking for an ROA,
yeah, hey,
really.
when we were a young company and we were 5 or 10 years old and, 20, 30 guys and all working together out in the field. I was a technician in the field for about 20 years of my lifetime.
Mhm.
And when we were all doing that, we were rooting for each other and really working to build each other up. But we wanted to advance financially too, and we wanted to
Yeah.
advance positionally. And we were really flat organization. Basically, it was me and my business partner, and then
Mhm.
everybody else, right?
Many businesses are, unfortunately.
And as we grew, we recognized the need to not only add positions that would
Mhm.
help us to grow further, but to add spaces for people that were really advancing to grow into.
Okay.
So we have area service managers, and then we have field service supervisors, and then we have
Mhm.
technicians of all those levels underneath. And all of these people work together to satisfy the customer and make sure that we're providing excellent service. But, they can clearly see what the goal is to get to the next stage because that career arc kind of is defined, right? So
Exactly.
if you're doing advanced installations, you know that pretty soon you're going to be apprenticing with one of the senior technicians and you'll be
Right.
out in the field soon enough.
Wow.
I would say there are pitfalls of this type of plan. I would say one of them is people will get comfortable in a slot. Like you'll have someone going through your program and they just love those PMs, right? And they want to stay there. But the key to
Oh,
success for us has been keeping them moving.
really? Okay.
Don't
Yeah,
let them
that makes sense.
stop.
Stagnant. Yeah, nobody wants, even if they don't realize it, they don't wanna be stagnant for too long.
They're getting comfortable, and we don't want them super comfortable in that spot. We want to keep them growing. There's no point in building your resume if you're staying in the same spot and never want to move ahead in your career. And that's probably another
Mm,
big distinction, Are you looking for a career or are you looking for a job? There's big difference. And I would say if you're looking for a job, you're looking at it as a temporary thing. If you're looking for a career, even if you're not with the same company for a long time, you're looking
yeah.
at building your resume. And so this really appeals to the people who are really wanting to build a career and, advance.
Hmm. I wish I would have found you 25 years ago. Because if we think about it, when you get out into the field and you get good at doing something, I know many people that are very good at what they're doing, and they should have left that a
Mm,
decade or two ago
yeah.
and been able to push themselves to a new level, but they don't. So, part of your entire program design is to encourage personal and professional development, whether you're ready for it or not.
Yeah. I learned years and years ago the best way to get promoted is to promote someone beneath you, right?
Yeah.
Someone that's coming up behind you. I shouldn't say
Yeah.
beneath you because I really don't see it that way, but
Right.
they're
Following in the path
following
of.
you. Promote them, encourage them, get them to the next level. You'll push up naturally in the organization. Um, so building your team is building your career in a lot of ways. And so the area service managers that we have are constantly working on building their team and training them and
Yeah.
getting them training. Not only from our group, we do training with manufacturers as well, and that's excellent training. We have great manufacturers in our industry
Hmm.
that are really cooperative with the service companies and really try to help them learn. I have to say, in all my years, I've been in this industry for about 35 years now. I started when I was
Yeah.
19.
Yeah.
The best relationships I've been able to build are with manufacturers over time that make the equipment. And they listen to
Yeah.
technicians. They want to hear the feedback. They want to know what's going right and wrong in the field and how they can make their machines better. And we just have
Hmm.
great manufacturers in the commercial food industry.
I second that. Our own conference is driven by support from equipment and tool manufacturers.
Yeah.
Our vendors, our exhibitors, our presenters are a lot of manufacturers from our industry. And so it's very important to have that backbone for your structure.
Yeah, they help us with a lot of things. And one of the key things they help us with is just safety, making safer and safer machines. I've seen,
Sure.
when I was working early in my career, the machines had none of the safeties that they have on them today. And,
Right.
these
Yeah.
manufacturers do care a lot about safety, not only the safety of the end user, but the safety of the technicians working on them. And I really appreciate that as a former technician in the field and now,
Hmm.
business executive working with a service company and a bigger company that cares about safety too.
Absolutely. You bring up a very important part. One of the other conversations Tom, Tebby, and I had was about continuing education as being crucial for your development. So, do you spend a fair amount of time in your program with continuing education, in particular, like with our manufacturers of equipment?
Yes. So I'd say the majority of our spend outside of our normal expenses is training. You
Mm,
know, many of the manufacturers that we train with, it's best to fly your technicians there and work with them in person, right?
yeah, put
In
them in the
their
facilities.
factory and see how it's made and the whole 9 yards, and we've sent many technicians for that kind of training over the years and still continue to do so. We're working with a manufacturer right now that's, about to train a significant number of our technicians, and getting all the logistics right. And, that's another cool part. When I was 19, I came into this industry. One of the cool things to me was I got to travel. I got to drive a little bit around. I love driving my car everywhere.
Mhm.
And, I got to meet a lot of people, in this industry, you spend a lot of time on the road, in between calls. And of
Oh, yeah.
course, we've, as a business, we've really tried to achieve a lot of density. So you're not having to go too far. But, still you're in the road, you're moving to the next location. On your way, you're thinking about all the things that could be going wrong with this piece of equipment based on the problem description. You're already troubleshooting in your
Mhm.
brain on your way
Absolutely.
there, and technicians understand that. They get
Mhm.
that. And so we just as a company really encourage them to, you know, enjoy the time that they have in the field. Field service is just a really rewarding job. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'd be doing had I not done that. And my wife loves it because she wants me to fix everything.
Yeah, you learn a lot of skills that you get to bring home,
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
could be a drawback. I mean, the honey-do
Yeah.
list expands dramatically when you have the ability to fix things, right?
I don't know that I've ever had a vacation where I haven't worked on something for somebody.
Yeah.
Just kind of comes with it. One of the questions that did just come in. So, along that career path, are there points where you're doing testing or competency, or is all of your levels based on the amount of time worked in the position?
Yeah, so when they're doing those jobs, they're even when you're doing the, basic installations or advanced installations, you're still apprenticing. There's someone else with you at the beginning of those jobs,
Gotcha.
measuring what your ability is, and they're bringing that
Yep.
feedback back to the area service manager to evaluate. But we also have pretty extensive tech testing through Tech 24 University. Tech
Okay.
24 has a great training program. It's done by a guy named Dave Filson, who's just amazing
Mhm.
trainer. And, especially with young technicians coming into the industry for the first time, his basic beginning courses are great. I've gotten tremendous feedback. I've looked at he does a lot of quizzing throughout his training, and I see the beginning scores and I see the end scores,
Big
and
difference.
it's a huge dramatic difference. And I think
Yeah.
he's really, he and his team are making training just the real fabric of Tech 24 for us. And
Makes sense.
I can see them developing that out to be even bigger and better in the future, for all of us, within the
Nice.
Tech 24 family.
May have to reach out and do some discussion on some of these e-learning modules and assessments, and
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things that the industry has to offer, and it's about making connections. And the we feel it's very important to be able to test your proficiency along the way.
Yep.
How do you know if someone's doing well, the only way to do that is to validate it through assessments. So
Yep.
kudos for doing that. There's a lot of untested technicians in our industry.
Yeah. No, it's important. You need to know where you stand. At some point, all of our technicians will go through the Tech 24 University unless they're already, super experienced. But
Pre-qualified.
if they're
Yeah.
pre-qualified, probably not. But if they're coming in and they're in the first 3 to 5 years of their experience in the industry, they'll still go through it, and learn what they can. And it's
Absolutely.
expensive to do training for a company,
Oh boy.
but
Mhm.
you've got to
There's
do
the
it.
payoff.
Yeah, you have to do it. I mean, it goes right to efficiency. The
Mm.
more service calls you can do in a shorter amount of time, the better off you
With
are.
less callbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the normal KPIs and first time fix rate and mean time to
Mhm.
fix and days between repairs. And we look at all of that. But what we're really looking for is the trend line.
Yeah.
Are you trending up in your ability and in your
Yeah.
career and in your goals as you accomplish them? And then we focus in on those that are, where the line is getting flatter, but we don't
Mhm.
forget the A students, you know. We don't wanna forget the people who are doing every single thing right,
Yeah,
in the company. And
and
so
pushing through.
yeah, so we have to remind, it's easy as an educator, right, to focus in on the kids that you're having a hard time getting the concept through to.
Yep.
But we can't forget those students that are doing everything that we're asking of them and expecting of them. And, to sail on through without any attention at all would be a shame, right? We need to give them
Mhm.
the kudos, like you said earlier, reward them for the desired behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can imagine within your structure, you have a lot of people in management that have actually made their way all the way from the enter apprentice in this program.
Yes, actually, so several. In fact, our area service manager for Southern California, we actually hired him from a grocery store. He's working in a seafood department and just kept asking us and bugging us, basically, How can I get on with you
Right.
guys?" Yeah.
Right. You guys look great.
And so one of our managers gave him a shot and he worked his way all the way up. And now he's running the largest division in our company and very successfully. And
Wow.
many others have worked their way up in other departments too. It's not just technicians in service. You've got dispatchers and estimators and purchasing people and accounting people and billing people. And, same thing. Our dispatch manager is our youngest manager, and she had no experience and worked her way up through dispatch. And now she's running the whole thing.
Wow.
And
All
so
right.
to see them do that is, I feel like a proud papa here,
That's a lot of success stories.
watching them grow.
It comes back to where we originally started the
Yeah.
conversation, the different career paths. When you get into this industry, where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you going is actually the question we should be asking. Because if you're not progressing, you're not developing. And if you're in a company that is not encouraging you to push yourself forward and to build your own resume and portfolio of experience, maybe it's worth questioning. Am I in the right developmental path? So, as you can see, there are many paths that you can go outside of these entry positions. They all have their directions all over the map. And so, the fact that you encourage the development from all the organizations with a similar design shows the success of the program.
Yeah. No, it's been a great career for me. I'm not at the end of it yet, but
Yep.
I'm still in the thick of things, and it's just a great. The service industry as a whole is just a really great industry to be in,
Mhm.
and at all levels. I don't care whether you're working on cars or industrial food processing equipment. I've had some time in that as well, and it's
Mhm.
just amazing to see all the opportunity out there. It's surprising to me because I've been doing it since I was 19
Right.
that people can't see all the opportunity. To me, it's just all low hanging fruit.
It's hard to fathom, isn't it?
Yeah, and
You know,
I hope today I'm encouraging somebody to look a little bit deeper into the service industry and find a spot for yourself and come grow, in one of these service industries. And even ours is a great one.
yeah, it's been a wonderful voyage for me. I do believe that I was able to hone my communication skills being in service.
Yeah,
I truly do. That's where you learn how to speak to people professionally, and you take the good and you take the bad, because not every job is,
for sure.
perfect. So we learn a lot in the service industry. Man, such great stuff, Rodger. Anyone have any questions or comments, things that you'd like to dive a little bit deeper while we've got Rodger with us? I really am digging the entire let's relook at our business plan and build a culture first. Build the culture, they will come.
Yep. I think, we're working on a new program to really try to improve our profitability. All companies are trying to do that, but we're trying to get as many people involved helping us because this is another resume building opportunity, right?
Sure.
Participating in this initiative to just build a more profitable company.
I would love to see a resume of someone that's been at your company for a year or two. It would probably change a person's perspective on writing their own resume.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they're taking the learning that they're taking in here and really thinking about what that means to their future.
Exactly. All right. Well, Rodger, wow, that's a lot of wonderful information on building a culture, recruiting and retaining, really based on personal and professional development within the culture of a company. And I see this as being a growing trend. We've already seen the success of it. I mean, I doubt that there's any contractors out here that say they have a surplus of quality technicians, and you've achieved that. So grateful to have you here. Grateful for the education, and man, look forward to some further conversations down the road.
All right, fantastic. Great being with you.
All right. We appreciate you. And we will see you all next week on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show.